There we go. Perfect. Apologize for being a little late, but we are here. I am in my office, so please excuse darkness a little bit. We're in a bit of a rush. This is our talk with teachers, and I am here to listen. I'm here to learn from our amazing guest speakers, and as well, Angel, who is going to be moderating our conversation today. So I will just turn it over to him.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us tonight or this evening. I have the privilege of being joined by a set of amazing teachers, as well as candidate Jake Tonkel, who's currently running for San Jose City Council District 6. We just wanted to introduce our Talk with Teachers dialogue. It's kind of, the title is an homage to James Baldwin and his fabulous essay titled A Talk to Teachers, where he also discusses issues in education. So we're going to be doing the same tonight, just having a really great dialogue and engaging issues of education, issues surrounding COVID-19 and education, and just discussing all these issues as they come. Cool. All right, so let me just introduce myself. My name is Tonkel Madero. I go by he, him pronouns. I graduated June of last year from UC Santa Cruz with my degree in politics and education. So I love discussing these things and bringing it forth. As well as, I forgot. Yeah. Oh, I'm also a campaign intern, sorry, with Jake's campaign right now for San Jose City Council District 6. And then just a little thing we wanted to, like a kind of an icebreaker, is like a hobby you've picked up during quarantine. So a personal hobby of mine has been houseplants. So you can see behind me, I have a pretty green thumb, so I've been taking advantage of that. Cool. So let's go ahead and turn this over to teachers.
I will bring them on right now. So we will jump to this screen and we will add on our amazing teacher.
Hi, everybody. So I dropped it in the comments, but if we could do teacher introductions. Is everything there for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. To my right is Ileana Perez. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, my name is Ileana Perez, and she, her, that's my pronoun. I teach Spanish at the high school level. And what else? Oh, at Lincoln High School in San Jose. And a hobby I've picked up, same. I had a dead garden and I tried to revive it. So that's kind of my hobby.
That's amazing.
New hobby.
Okay, great. Below me to my left is Beth Wilson. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Beth Wilson. I go by she and her. I'm a special education teacher at Branham High School in San Jose. I teach a moderate to severe program for students grades 9 through 12. And I'm the Best Buddies advisor at our school. We have a very robust Best Buddies club. So a hobby I picked up during quarantine. Well, I have a lot of children, so they're kind of keep me busy. But I think a new hobby is we've been trying to hike a lot. So like today we went to a new place to hike. So finding new hiking places that I've never been before.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very awesome. And then right below me is Renata Sanchez. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Renata Sanchez, she, her, hers. I am an elementary site coach. So I work with teachers TK through 5th grade at Allenette Steinbeck Elementary School. And then when I am in the classroom, my classroom specialty is 4th and 5th grade. A hobby that I've been picking up. So I've always wanted to learn how to do this because both like my mom, my grandmother, everyone else knows how to do it. But I've been learning how to cross stitch and do embroidery.
Cool.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, and then last but not least, Sonia Revelo.
Hi, I'm Sonia, and I go by she, her, and I teach at Gunderson High School. I teach government, economics. I also coach the mock trial team, so I do a lot with civics. And I recently took on teaching geography as well to freshmen. And I love Gunderson and I love teaching. And as far as hobbies go, I haven't actually picked up any new hobbies, but I've really developed hobbies that I already had before. Like I like to work out, but it's always hard to find time to work out. So I've actually really carved out time for myself to exercise every day. And it's been really great. But unfortunately, I haven't really developed anything new. Just kind of working on the old stuff.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all for the introductions. Glad we got to know each other a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and just dive right in with our first question. You can all feel free to answer it if you'd like, or if you'd like to pass or go from there. But I'm just gonna throw it out there, all right? Okay. So teachers are expected to fill a myriad of roles, ranging from counselors, educators, mentors, classroom suppliers, and now 2 public health officers. Can you describe some of the changes to the culture of schooling and your new role in the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I guess I guess I'll start. I was just gonna say that I feel like change maybe in the culture. I feel like we've always had these roles, and I feel like that's why, at least that's why I love teaching. I love all of the roles. I love teaching my content. I love teaching Spanish, but I love being there for students. I love connecting with students. I think that COVID has changed. Obviously, I don't get to see them every day, but I'm hoping that maybe the community has realized what a big role we play in students' lives. I feel like that's one thing that I might have noticed, is that hopefully the community has realized how central we are to these kids' lives. Or at least I've noticed that. You know, like I feel like I see them every day, and now I feel like I'm really missing them and thinking that maybe they miss me too.
Schools are much more than just for education.
Yeah.
They're really a big social support in so many ways, for so many families. And I think people probably, if they aren't utilizing their school in that way, maybe they don't realize that. But there are so many families that really depend on the school for social support and food and clothing and so many different social needs apart from education,
Mm-hmm.
And I think the schools have come up really big in at least I think I'm really proud of Branham. I feel like our school has really been able to help a lot of students with their essential needs beyond education and even their families.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I really feel like when you're in the classroom every day with your students, I don't want to say they take you for granted, but there's just this sort of assumption that you're going to be there the next day and they're going to see you the next day. And since COVID, I think the students initially were a little bit excited by the change, but I think that once it kind of settled in what it really meant, they definitely, at least for me, I felt like they showed appreciation. And I started getting little messages from them and pictures of things that they were doing at home, and just random text messages asking me what I was doing, and it was really sweet, actually. And so I kind of felt like the students really and sometimes the parents too, actually, but the students really missed that interaction every day. And it was important for me to try to continue to have that any way I could. It wasn't easy, but I think we all did our best to try to still have connections with our students and to still have them feel like they're part of your life. And that was really challenging but special at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the connection might have been different, but in some ways I felt like some of the connections I made with kids were even deeper, because it would be like a one-on-one Zoom call versus, a whole big classroom, or maybe they would be more comfortable talking to me on Zoom versus in person. So I preferred everything to be in person, but I feel like for some kids, having the screen as a buffer allowed them to be to feel a little safer, especially in some of the kids that I teach, like with autism and stuff like that. So that was kind of an interesting byproduct that I wasn't expecting.
That's awesome.
I think I would just add two things, and those are Before the pandemic, we filled these roles wholeheartedly for the students in our classroom. And I think one of the big changes that has happened since the closure of school sites has been, not only are we shouldering a lot of the anxieties and concerns of our students, but of their families as well. We always did do that beforehand, especially for me coming from the elementary context, where families are just starting out their journey through public education. But the pandemic has really like elevated and brought that to forefront. Our parents, our families are scared and anxious, and this is such an uncertain time, whether it's uncertainty around what their job looks like, if they have a job, if they have paycheck, what school looks like, what childcare looks like. They're shouldering a lot, and we're there with that and helping them through that. And then I think the other thing that I would add along with that is, I think especially in the last couple of months, I have seen teachers take on this role in a much more public light of being that public advocate for their families and for their for the future of public education, like making sure that we are coming back when it is safe for our communities for us to have students at our schools. And that's a really uncomfortable place for a lot of teachers to be, because we're so used to being in our classrooms and being in charge of the culture that we're creating with our students. So being in the front of the public, it's new and scary, but we're taking it on because we know that that's what our kids need and deserve.
Right.
And I just think this is such a cool feature, but the community thinks so too. So Wendy, teachers are our heroes.
Oh, that's dope.
I don't know about you guys, but I being with special education, so I have a caseload that I have to, I do know that I'm in charge of their IEPs and everything, and so I tend to get, because it's a smaller group, I tend to get to know the families quite well and this and that, but I really, and I'm sure you've all experienced this as well, where you've actually like found resources for families to get food and resources for families to get even jobs. I've hooked some of the parents up with jobs, and so I think teachers have really been reaching out beyond the education realm when they know that a family is struggling, to make sure that their basic needs are met, and finding social systems that will meet those needs, whether it be like loaves and fishes, or just giving them information so that they can get their basic needs met when they're struggling with that during this really difficult time of people losing their jobs and everything. Did you guys, I'm sure you guys have all done things like that too. Which is, we would have done that normally, but it's so critical, so much more critical, and it just seems like it's so many families are having so many hardships.
For some of us that are unaware, like myself, I'm not currently in public education or like anything like that. Can one of you guys walk us through like what a school day looks like like now?
Like a virtual school day? Yes. I think it's different depending on everyone's situation. And,
okay.
Yeah,
but
I think so too.
Like, yeah, personally, I think we have to set like a certain amount of assignments for the week, and then check in with kids a certain amount of time. And then it all depends on your household and your living situation. And I feel like that's something that, like, personally, I live in a home with my brother, and we have babies and dogs and a cat. We don't have enough space. So my school day, and I have a new baby. So I played hot potato with my baby between like Zoom meetings, and I just did the best I could. Again, I wanted to be there for the kids as much as I could. A lot of the time though, I found myself really, obviously in my day, right? Making sure my kids got to see my life, every part of my life. As I was trying to hold a baby and shush a dog. So I think it was just doing the best we could, trying to make these lessons rigorous, but definitely a lot of checking on Google Classroom and holding a small Zoom meeting and answering emails and trying to be as personal through video chat as you could. I don't know. Hopefully this next year we're better prepared, but
Right.
that was my day. What about you all?
I think also that it depended on, you know, for example, I teach AP classes, and so they had a test that was coming down the pike that they needed to prepare for. So for my AP kids, because they had this kind of high stakes test coming, you know, I had more time with them to really review the changes that were happening with the exam. And then we also had to balance things like not putting too much pressure on them, because I didn't know their technology situation. I didn't know if they had access, you know, in the first couple of weeks, it was like, who has a computer at home? Who has internet at home? Who is taking care of siblings while parents are trying to go to work? What is their life like at home? And if I suddenly was like, well, okay, guys, I'm going to give you all this work that you have to do from home, there was that fear that I would overwhelm them. And so it was really trying to find a balance between assigning work that was meaningful and rigorous and still had value, but was not so typical of what we might do in class that they felt overwhelmed and that they couldn't do it. So it was really trying to figure out how to make the work that they were doing at home meaningful, and also trying to make sure that it was work that they could actually do given the technology. So there was in the beginning, it was a lot of just reaching out to the students to see how they were doing, to see what they had, making sure that kids had computer to work on. And then once you figured that out, then it was trying to assign work that made sense given the situation that was going on. It definitely wasn't the same. It wasn't apples for apples. If we had been in the classroom, it would have been very different. But I think all of us probably tried to make it as meaningful as we could given the circumstances that we were working under.
Right.
I think Angel, what's tricky about this question is that in the spring, when we closed down school sites, we had a couple hours of notice, and that closure was supposed to be a couple of weeks, and that ended up into a couple of months, and we're still here today. And so I would describe that time really as crisis distance learning. We were in crisis all the time, so we were just trying to do the best with what we had, trying to make our school days look as similar to what the students were used to in the classroom, and relying a lot on the relationships that we had built over the year up to that point. And I think like the question now that you bring is actually the question that we're all really grappling with and have been grappling with all summer. Like, how do we take this crisis experience and turn it into a rigorous distance learning experience for the fall? And like from my perspective, I think what that looks like at the elementary level is finding that balance between whole group lessons on like live streams kind of like this versus like bringing in small groups while the rest of the students are working independently or in their own collaborative breakout rooms on different things. And that's going to look different from a 5-year-old to a 10-year-old. Like a 5-year-old, you're going to be walking through just like, how do you even click a mouse? And what's the difference between a keyboard and a tablet and things like that? Whereas our 5th graders are going to be more well prepared to engage in things like Google Slides and presentations and collaborative work in that way. But yeah, that's a question that we've been grappling with all summer.
You know, it's funny, Renata, just to piggyback on what she said, I have a colleague who happened to be sick on that Friday, and she doesn't have children at home, and so she literally said she had nothing. She just had her laptop, and that's it. She didn't have textbooks. She joked that she didn't even have paper in her house because she did all of her like work at school. So crisis distance learning, I think is a really good way of putting it. It really was sort of like, okay, well, what do we do? How do we figure this out? And so I mean, I think at least for my colleagues, and I feel probably here as well, you know, we really hit the ground running and did, you know, as much as we possibly could without overwhelming our students or frankly ourselves sometimes as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a whole different way of balancing and organizing time. And I mean, I don't know, I would find myself just like, you know, the amount of emails and checking in with people and helping, because I mean, you can say it like my district, I felt Campbell Union High School District, they hand delivered computers and hotspots to every kid in the whole district. So if somebody needed a computer and a hotspot, every single person had it, and they would drop it off at their house if they didn't pick it up. So that's you know, equitable, but not really, because a lot of the kids got the computer and the hotspot, but maybe their parents weren't able to help them set it up, so it was difficult for them. You know, so it was like, even though they all had the same supplies, it really wasn't equal, because the students whose parents were able to help them were the students that were much more successful, especially in special education. So that was something that I felt was, you know, trying to help the parents help the kids. I feel like that would be a really helpful, some kind of parent training or something, you know, where people could even go to the parent's house and show them how to do it. I don't know how that would look. You know, there's so many high school and college kids with extra time right now. You know, if we could get volunteers to go to people's houses and do it in a safe, distancey way, you know. But I feel like that was a big source of inequity to me, is students who could do the technology, you know, and their parents understood, and students whose parents did not understand technology.
Right.
I mean, I had students who, when we asked them if they had technology, they said yes, and it turns out it was their iPhone.
Right.
You know, and they were working off their iPhone up until, you know, they answered the question. Yeah, I have access to my Google Classroom on my iPhone, but they can't write a full essay on their phone.
Right.
They can, and they do.
Right.
But it's not easy, and it's not as easy as someone else who has a full laptop. And then the issue of like bandwidth too. You know, you have parents working at home as well, and then all of a sudden you've got every computer in the house being used, and then the bandwidth is slow and connections aren't good, and
yeah.
Right.
I had a girl that had to go out onto her porch. She lived in an apartment, and there must have been a lot of people on the computers, but the only way she could get into my class was to go sit on her porch. And she was using, for some reason, she preferred to use the iPhone. But I mean, I would have a lot of one-to-one technology, you know, conferences with her to make sure she could figure out how to get into Google Classroom and things like that. So that was hard, because like you said, it was crisis learning, and everybody had to learn it like that. It wasn't like they already knew how to do it.
Great. Thank you guys. I just wanted to ask the question, maybe to two teachers, if you guys wouldn't mind. But before COVID-19, what were some issues that were most poignant to you as educators, and how, if so, were they exacerbated through the pandemic?
You know, it's funny. I can't think of anything from before, because when you're in it, sometimes you don't think you're aware of it. You know what I mean? But after, I think the technology issue, I think, was the biggest one. You know, everyone's using Google Classroom, and people are using all these different fantastic programs online. And you ask your kids, hey, do you have access to technology? And they all say, yes, I do. And then when this situation happened, all of a sudden you do realize, well, no, actually, they don't have the same kind of technology. Every kid's technology is a little bit different. And wow, I didn't even realize that, you know, a percentage of my students were writing their essays on phones.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I think for me personally, that was sort of eye-opening and made me reevaluate, or is making me reevaluate how I'm going to move forward in terms of how I teach and access to technology. And I hope also that it'll also be an eye-opening for our districts as well, we live in the Silicon Valley. We have access to the greatest technological minds and technology. And I wonder why we couldn't all be one-to-one schools. How we can make sure that all of our students equitably have access to the technology they need in the 21st century to be modern learners.
And then Sonia, I wanted to add on to what you said, because it's not only just the technology and access for our students, but I was also blown away, like something I had a huge blind spot to was technology and access for our teachers. How many teachers actually didn't have internet at home because internet is very expensive. And most folks spend most of their time at their school sites and can access and do most of their work at their school sites. So when they came home, most of the technology is just on the phone. So that was also something that I was made aware of as well. But the thing that was really poignant that I wanted to bring up was that I've always been aware of is just the cost of living for our families. And we struggle with it as teachers, but as much as we struggle with it, I teach at a Title I school. Our families struggle so hard. And what that could look like, it looks like families working multiple jobs, of our students taking on extra work at very young ages so that they can't fully engage in their education experiences sometimes. But what really has come to light, I think, in the COVID pandemic time has been how many of our students are living in multi-generational houses and multi-familial houses or apartments, dwellings as well. So just seeing just the closeness of everyone and it coming, like I connect that really closely with the reopening of school sites and how really it's about not just keeping our students safe, but making sure our students' families are safe because so many of them are living together because that's the only way that you can afford to live in San Jose that way.
Which also makes it really hard for the kids to get away from noise and chaos, to be able to go to their Zoom calls and do their work. I almost wish that the public libraries could reopen and set up plexiglass cubicles or something so that kids could go, have a bubble around them where they could go to do work if they needed a quiet place to work or, because I do know that a lot of the kids would mention that oh my gosh, my house is like a circus, it's like the circus here. How am I getting, and even in my own house, having, I have 3 kids still at home and my husband was working at home. We were all just shh, I'm on a Zoom call and, hiding in any old little space you can find to get privacy. So I don't know.
And that, I think, I'm sorry, just to piggyback with technology, a lot of kids who said they had technology, maybe had one computer, but had multiple siblings or cousins or parents who needed to use the internet. So that was definitely an issue. And yes, you're right. Multi-generational homes, so many. I think I knew that from the conversations that we had in the classroom, but I realized that even more during these.
I'm so sad that you're I'm not trying to be disparaging, but I feel very grateful, I guess, that my district made sure all the kids had at least a laptop and a hotspot if they needed it. So did your guys' districts not supply those for the students?
They did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, so why would they be working on an iPhone if they had a laptop to work on? Just because
eventually they got a computer.
Oh.
When I did my when you do your initial survey in those first few weeks,
it took a while.
Right, it took a while
Okay.
because the students would be like, "Oh, I have technology."
Right.
So that, and then you realize later when you're talking to them and they admit to you, "Well, actually, I'm working on my phone, Mr. Bello. I don't."
Right.
Oh no, we got to get a computer. So yeah. I mean, it was a process, but yeah, we did eventually get it. But I mean, you could argue late in the game.
That's great. I was just hoping everybody had it,
but not by the district necessarily or our school. More just the communication between the kids and the school.
Yeah, we were finding that there were a lot of families without cars. So even if they were offered a laptop on a hotspot, that they weren't going to be able to come and get it because there was really no way for them to come to the school to get it. So that's why our schools decided to just start delivering them. So that was a big eye opener too, about how many families don't even really have a car that they can use because maybe the one parent who's going to work has the car and, you know, they have no way to get to the school to get the computer or the hot lunch or whatever.
Right, and I think this is a great segue to follow up to my my final question, really. So Jake is the candidate running for city council here in District 6, which is currently where I reside, and Ileana, Lincoln High School falls in District 6. I don't think the other schools, or they might, not too sure.
I don't think Branham does.
Yeah. But what are some policies, and I can throw some out there, such as like raising teacher salaries, creating affordable housing for teachers, after school care for parents or even teachers themselves, that you think Jake and just like in the bigger picture, city council and the city of San Jose can endorse or push for to help teachers and education as a whole? Sorry, that was like a lot. If you need me to repeat.
Yeah, you're right, Angel. I know that Lincoln is in D6 and the rest of our schools are not, but I think what's so powerful about a candidate like Jake is that he doesn't like, it's about all of San Jose. It's not just about this one little area, because once you're on council, you really are making decisions on behalf of all of the residents of San Jose. And so for us, some of the ideas that I was thinking of are things like universal childcare, especially that the 0 to 5 range is really could be so powerful if we could, both for teachers and for families, and also our like classified staff members as well. That would be a huge lift off of our shoulders, as well as universal internet access for the city of San Jose, not for the state. I don't know why we're not there yet. I mean, I do know why, because that would keep people from making money. but I think like those are two policy issues from a city council perspective that could be really helpful for teachers and families in this time.
Yeah,
I agree with the child care is a big issue for so many people. My youngest is 10, so I'm getting past that, but yeah, it's a huge issue. Like I had a wonderful aide in my classroom that had to quit because she couldn't afford the child care in San Jose, and she needed to get more affordable child care near where she was living and couldn't commute anymore. So I know some high school campuses used to have child care on them, and then the students would take child development classes, and then they would work in the child care facility, you know, but I know teachers have asked to have child care facilities in our district, but the district has declined, I believe. But yeah, the universal child care would be huge for people because it's so expensive.
Right. Jake, so both Beth and Renata mentioned universal childcare, as well as Renata alluded to the idea of the digital divide. You as a council member, how would you propose or bring these ideas forth to city council?
I think it's really important that we're talking about which roles the city council can fix, right? We want to ensure that our school boards and the teachers are working through the school for the aspects that are directly under their purview. The first thing, city council needs to do is endorse schools first, so that we get proper funding to our school board, our education systems. I know that after school, the community center, the library programs are really the ones that have the most direct purview under City of San Jose, where a partnership for universal childcare, which I think is a great idea, and needs to be pushed. They're working on it in San Francisco. You know, how City of San Jose partnering with the county that does a lot of our first education for parents and kids. Some of it just carve out money. I mean, that's a big piece of what city council does. And we're talking about, City of San Jose that gave $800,000 in a grant to, school last year. how were we distributing that across our district? Because we ended up giving it to a small private school in the city boundaries because communication wasn't great with our public schools and our superintendent, where they didn't even end up applying. So that first big piece is communicating. That's why I'm so grateful to have all of you on to share those things, so that I can continue to advocate an ally. But the biggest piece is how do we get our lives funded? How do we lean on companies, whether it's moving towards municipal internet, which is a public utility and we should be able to provide for everyone in the city, or squeezing out good deals for our community, providing free and highly subsidized digital access to the community as well, are areas where we need to step in and step in fast. I mean, COVID is not going away. There are a lot of people that are, and teachers as well, trying to figure out what does next school year look like. Addressing those equity issues on that digital divide as well has to happen quickly. And the city could step in and make that happen.
Does anybody else have any other issues? Renata, you mentioned affordable housing.
Yeah, I can add that. I was just trying to step back to see if anybody else had anything else. Yeah, affordable housing. I'm sure that many of you are aware that my school district, San Jose Unified, has been really investigating the feasibility of creating not just teacher housing, but really staff housing, because like I've alluded to before, our classified staff are often in just as much, if not more, of a housing crisis situation than many teachers are. And knowing that from the city council perspective, there's a lot of work that could be done in terms of permitting and all of those sorts of things in order to both like create affordable housing across the city, but also to specifically support different education staff housing proposals.
The city of Santa Clara, I used to teach in Santa Clara Unified, and the city of Santa Clara created an apartment complex for teachers. It was called Casa de Maestras, and it's a huge like apartment complex that they would do subsidized housing for the teachers. So I don't know if the school district paid for that or if the city paid for it, but it's still, sorry, my cat just jumped across my head. It's still there, and it still benefits the teachers that want to utilize it. So just like what you're talking about, creating affordable housing.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to bring up, staff as well. We need affordable housing for everybody. Whether you're teacher, staff, or one of the families that everyone has mentioned, are going through struggles through both COVID and pre-COVID. And that's one of the challenges here. I certainly think that we're in a spot where teacher housing has a great message to it. But that sometimes that means we are leaving out, staff, we're leaving out other critical members of our community when we don't build that. So how are we coming across it from all? There are certainly zoning aspects to move forward. How do we upzone places so that we can get housing in our community as our population grows? But for the most part at City Hall, it's how do we require on-site affordable housing? We've got lots of luxury apartment construction going on, things that most families can't afford, and everybody else gets to commute in from somewhere else. We're sitting on a city that has 4 low-income jobs for every 1 low-income housing unit. And that's why you get families that are stuck together. And so it has to be a holistic approach. Teacher housing is a big piece of it, but housing for everybody is how we really move this forward, so that we're not in a place 15 years from now saying, well, we need more teachers specific, because we'll have affordable housing for everybody, in 20, 30 years.
And that's why Santa Clara started their program, is to recruit teachers, because they knew it was so expensive to live here, so they got teachers from out of state to come in when there was a teacher shortage. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
At that time, there was a big teacher shortage. So anyway,
And I think that's one of the things that's also affecting students is this turnover of teachers who want to be there for them, who want to work with these populations, who want to work in their school, but just like them, can't afford to live there anymore, and maybe prefer to work for a neighboring district that will pay them more, that will maybe provide some sort of housing. So as much as we want to stay and be here for them, which is why we're all here, I mean, it's hard out here for our families, and it's hard out here for teachers too. So not having the support as far as housing, pay, really just, it can't keep us where we want to be or where we're needed most. Does that make sense? So
retaining good teachers because they can't afford to live here. Yeah.
Right. I guess I have a personal idea that I also was thinking about, but also alluded by a comment from Dee Dee Farley. They mentioned how this study could help schools. Oh, thank you, Jake. By adding free computer classes for low-income parents at the school level. Somebody else had mentioned computer classes or these infrastructures. But upon doing some preliminary research for this live stream, I came across a really interesting article about parent education. And then you are all mentioning how a lot of your students live in multi-generational families. We're adding this idea of parent education that could be done through city workshops or task forces on education, or even pairing the city with the school districts and school boards, creating these workshops to teach parents, and you get this whole idea of family literacy going throughout, both for content curriculum, but also technology. So it kind of benefits the whole unit as a whole, and we have a better city going from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be incredibly helpful. And I think San Jose Unified I think they had some courses teaching parents. I think they had Latino parents teaching the English courses, I think.
They did. I remember.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Am I right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
expanding that, mastering. Yeah, and I feel like step one is accessing those
family
parents. Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, I was just saying that we have a program called Family University that's run out of the Family Engagement Office in the district at Leadville.
Yeah. I feel like,
but maybe more specific needs as the pandemic has emerged are needed, as far as certain technology pieces, like how to use Canvas or how to use Google Classroom or, whatever.
And maybe something more locally to their neighborhood school, going to, a district office or going to, somewhere that's not close to their neighborhood is challenging. So, if something could happen at the site so that parents could, go locally real quick to a class, I think would be really useful as well.
I feel like it's really cool that these programs exist. It's just, I don't know how many parents know about them or have access to them. So I feel like that's the first step, is really reaching into their homes and letting them know these are all of the things that we can offer you. What do you want? When does it work for you? And
absolutely. That's one of the main things that I always talk about when developing new programs is, one, you have to put all of the effort into developing the program, but equally you have to advertise it just as well, or else you'll never have any results to show from it. And then it's just like a cyclical kind of thing to where, oh, nobody came out, therefore let's cut the program, but nobody knew about it. So it's this whole idea. But
I see in education that a lot of programs are started and then they're trashed after 2 years, but that it really takes more than 2 years to get a program up and running and a system. And so somebody will get this great idea and then, they'll try it out for a couple of years and maybe it doesn't quite catch fire, but then they haven't given it enough time to take hold, and the cycle needs to be a little bit longer so that to let the programs develop. I was hearing some research about that the other day. And then also it takes a lot of really like personal phone calls where people have to call the house and really, you have to really, to get parents to become involved. I have found it takes so much communication. There's phone calls, text messages, emails. I mean, you can't just like send out a flyer in the mail and expect people to show up.
At Lincoln, we had a focus group of teachers who we had a goal, and we backwards planned and realized that what we need is, again, to access parents in their homes. And we realized that what we need to do is make leaders of some of those parents who could reach out to other parents. And so not to carry all the way, because like you said, it's all phone calls, but if we can get parents to communicate to each other, so making leaders out of them might be something that we're trying to work on.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge theme just running through Jake's campaign in general is self-empowerment and really lifting the voices of the people. So yeah, I mean, with that, I wanted if we could all kind of like end this little this live stream with something that as a teacher, if you could describe something that you really miss or something you want to say personally to your students, I think would be a really fun way to kind of wrap around.
I just miss my students. I miss them way more than I thought. I actually wrote them this very sincere letter at the end being like, I'm so, not that I'm surprised that I miss them so much, but it really hurts my heart not seeing them. Just through passing period, checking up on them, seeing it. I don't know. I miss you all. I can't wait to see you all. It breaks my heart that I wasn't able to say goodbye to this year's senior class. I had to stop myself from checking out their address and sending them cards and being a little stalkerish. But I loved you all.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo that. First of all, I love teaching. I love Gunderson High School. I love my students. I love my subject matter. I primarily taught seniors, so I was pretty heartbroken for them because I saw the writing on the wall. I knew kind of what was coming for them in terms of graduation and prom and end of the year activities and that sort of thing. And so it was hard. It was really, really sad, and I miss that opportunity to spend those last few months with them. Fortunately, the ones that I was particularly close with, I think I'll continue to stay close with, at least, until it's not cool for them to still be friends with their teachers. But yeah, I just, I miss all of my students, and I can't wait to meet my new group of students. Whatever that's going to look like, I'm into it, and I'm going to do it with 100% gusto. And I'm just looking forward to being back with the kids and dealing with all of this stuff together.
Yeah, I agree. One of my favorite parts of the day is, so at Allen, there's this really long front walkway, and then you go into like these double doors, and then there's this big common area where everybody gathers. And one of my favorite parts of the day is just somebody and saying hi, and just like having that community. And I think that the thing that I would add is I really miss my colleagues. Like we have such strong relationships and such a positive school climate. And I miss being in the same room with them. Being a teacher is hard. Like there's no way around that, but the people that you work with are make it fun. And so I miss having them around as well.
Yeah, I miss my colleagues too. I was thinking while you were talking that I was going to add that. It's just that camaraderie every day, and just seeing their faces in the hallways and at meetings, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. So yeah, the colleagues are part of what make Gunderson so wonderful. So I miss them as well.
Just the same as everyone. Branham is is an amazing high school. I feel the climate there is so positive and energetic and can do. I really believe that all my colleagues truly care about the students. So I just love being in that environment of, there's just such an environment of wanting to help and wanting all kids to be successful and making sure that people have what they need and that people are taken care of, students are taken care of emotionally and educationally and socially and everything. So I really miss being on campus because it's so energizing to be around just all the positivity I feel. And so I miss my colleagues, I miss my students, I miss, I miss everyone. And it's just not the same when you're not there in person with them. When you get that kid walking through your classroom door first thing in the morning with the big hello or a joke or I teach students with special needs, and a lot of my students do have social outlets, but a lot of my students don't have a lot of social outlet beyond school. And so I am really sad that they don't have their network at school that really helps supply them with a vibrant social life. So anyway.
Any other little comments, little tidbits for your students?
Stay safe.
You guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't become teachers to get rich. We became teachers because we love people. And that's what gets us out of bed every morning is seeing our students and the human connections that we make. So that's missed by everyone, I'm sure.
Right.
If there are any students watching this live stream, I would say make sure that you're still reading every night.
Yes.
Every day.
Read. You can read it. Yes. If you do nothing else, please read.
And pay attention to the news and pay attention to what's going on in the world around us and really be critical consumers of the news and careful consumers of the news and stay informed and pay attention to what's happening because there's a lot going on every single day and it can be overwhelming, but it's important to try to continue to stay knowledgeable about what's going on. Especially students are mostly seniors, they're going to be voting, I hope. And, so it's really important that they are paying attention. Yeah.
Jake, would you like to add a little final remark?
I just want to say thank you, all you amazing teachers that joined me tonight. Angel, awesome job. All the teachers out there that are watching, I know a couple of comments from people that I know are teachers or former teachers. The way I would frame, I think everybody's collective direction for us as a community is that we need to invest in our youth, invest in people that are teaching our youth and guiding our communities. That's how we're going to get to a better San Jose. We're going to go to a better country and to a better world. Absolutely impressed by all your energy, even throughout this process. So thank you again. Looking forward to seeing what amazing young people you all are going to cultivate the community in the next few years as well. So very excited.
And then I just also wanted to finish up just thanking you all for joining us today, this evening. This was like a really great eye-opening conversation, especially because I've been out of the public education system for a while. So I'm kind of unaware of the direction it's going, what you guys go through on a day-to-day basis. But just really emphasizing and bringing home the fact that teachers are part of the backbone of society. You guys prepare our students, prepare everybody just to really engage the world in a really thoughtful manner. And I'm incredibly excited for what comes out of this dialogue and the changes that I can see and the recognition that I can see society having for our educators. So for that, just thank you again all for joining us tonight.
You're so cool. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, other teachers. Good luck with your school years and everything.
Yeah, and then reach out to us too if you have anything you'd like advertise, or if you want to set up another live stream. We can chat about anything and everything. Open.
Absolutely.
I'm going to use your idea about getting like a parent captain to reach out to all the other
Yeah.
parents. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
I'll let you know if it works too. All right.
Perfect, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.